know that there's no other person that you can put your money on better than yourself.
Welcome to Leaders of the West, a podcast for innovators and changemakers. I'm your host, Jessie Jarvis, the founder of the West, and I'm sitting down with agriculturalists, entrepreneurs, executives, and everyone in between with the goal of digging into the strategies, mindsets, and lessons that have been crucial to the success of ag and Western. Whether you're carrying on the next generation of your family's operation, starting something from scratch, or determined to climb up the leadership ladder, we're going to inspire you to continue to dream big, growing not just you, but the future of agriculture and Western as a whole. Let's go. In the last few weeks, I've gotten some questions from employers asking how Of the West works, the cost, etc. So I want to take a second to break that down real quick. Pricing is a big deal, and we've worked really hard to make our listings affordable for everyone, from those of you who are one man or woman show to those businesses who are hiring at all times. So first things first, our basic listing. This is priced at $79. The basic listing is as it sounds. Your job is listed on the site and is found by job seekers who are searching for roles like yours. Next up, we have our pro job listing. This option is priced at $99. It's a 45-day listing, as all listings are. You can shorten them as needed with your specific closing date, but if you don't have a closing date, it'll sit on the platform for 45 days. This option also means that your job will be shared across all of our social accounts and in our weekly email newsletters that go out to more than 10,000 subscribers. That's followed by our premium listing, which includes everything in that pro listing, but these jobs are also pinned to the top of all jobs, so they get more time to shine. You can get those for $129. We also have special discounted pricing for internships. Those are priced at $59. It's the cheapest offering that we have, and we created that because we know internships are valuable positions to offer, but it's hard to spend money on them like it is a true employment position. Like all other jobs, again, those live on the site for 45 days at a time. And finally, for those who are hiring for multiple roles, we also have frequency discounts on 5 jobs, 15 jobs, and our unlimited monthly subscription. You know, as I mentioned before, we work really hard to make things affordable for employers and also bring forward great applicants. If you're in the process of hiring, or you know you will be soon and are planning to use Of the West, you can go to our website, ofthewest.co, and list those jobs. Bing, bop, boom, boom, bop, bam. You guys, we are back with a brand new episode today. You guys are going to love it. I just got done recording it with the one and only Elizabeth Thomas. In this episode, she goes all in on how she and her husband Seth and brother-in-law Logan have been able to, one, not only create a successful ranching operation that they also work alongside of her in-laws in, but then how they have been able to vertically integrate that by adding in a direct-to-consumer beef business as well as a wholesale beef business called Thomas Cattle Company. So if you are anywhere in Idaho or the Northwest, chances are you've heard of Thomas Cattle Company. You can find their meat everywhere, in restaurants, in grocery stores like the Boise Co-op. They also sell direct-to-consumer, shipping their meat all across the country. I personally know the Thomas family, more so Elizabeth. She and I, we used to go to lunch every now and then. Actually, when she had her job in town, which is another piece that we really dig into in this episode, is how she and her family were able to grow and scale their beef business, which afforded her the opportunity to leave her 9-to-5 job and come work full-time in their operation. So I know that that is a dream for many of you who are listening today. So I think that you are going to get so much out of this episode. With that, we are going to get right to it. Elizabeth Thomas, welcome to Leaders of the West. Elizabeth, today we are digging into a variety of things, but one of the biggest points that I really want to talk about is how you and Seth and the rest of your husband's family have really built and scaled an incredibly successful direct-to-consumer and wholesale meat business. But something about that I think is really unique is through that process, you have built that business large enough to where it can sustain your family, your husband's brother and his family. That also allowed you to leave your very career-oriented 9-to-5 job that you had for how many years to now where you're able to work full-time for Thomas Cattle Company and the meat side of the business. So as we go through this conversation, this is something that we know that a lot of people, especially rural women, have this dream, right? We all know that saying about behind every successful rancher is a woman who works in town, and how many of us actually want to have to work in town? There are a lot of people that don't, but feasibly, it's not possible without some kind of stable income. Now that I've kind of keyed this up, can you just tell us a little bit about your story so that people can kind of get a sense of where you're at now and what has led up till now about you, Thomas Cattle, and then we'll get into the nitty-gritty details.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about what we're building at Thomas Cattle. And I love listening to your podcast as a listener. So to be a guest is really special for me. Being a rural woman, I drive a lot of miles. So I listen to a lot of podcasts, and Leaders of the West is one of them. So thank you for having me on. So yeah, I actually didn't grow up in agriculture. I grew up in Montana in an agriculture community, but I was not familiar with it. I actually grew up in construction. So I can paint and clean a construction site better than most people, but ag wasn't something that I was familiar with. And I went to college and I played college basketball. And towards the end of my senior year, I ended up meeting my future husband, who also played college basketball. We got married or engaged 6 months later, and we're married a year later. And so I kind of jumped into agriculture with no experience, no background of really what all went into it, and moved to the middle of nowhere, which was a learning process in itself. And so after we got married, I moved out to the ranch, and I've lived out, where our house is for 16 years now. And we've always had a commercial ranching operation. My brother-in-law and husband grew up in ranching, and so that's all they've known. And so when I came to with the family, I was going to look for a job in town. So we're about 45 minutes from two larger towns with lots of opportunity for jobs. So I really wanted to look for something that was as close as possible because it is a drive. It's a commitment to drive, 45 minutes an hour every single day. We really want to do something we love. So when we got engaged, I actually found a job at a local credit union, and I worked my way up there, started as AVP of marketing. And when I left after just shy of 15 years, I was the vice president of marketing and development. And that was a wonderful career, a great place to be. But as I got older and as our kids got older, I knew I wanted more flexibility, and I really wanted the opportunity to share our beef with more people. Just in how we sell our cattle commercially, we knew that people loved our product and buyers came back again and again because our product served them well. Our cattle gained weight well, they finished well. And so we really, about 2019, started having the conversation of what if we kept some for ourselves and really tried to work towards vertically integrating so that we could keep the animal from birth till butcher and sell it direct to consumer and in a wholesale program. And so we started having more serious conversations about that. And in 2019, finally decided to jump into it and launch our website. So we're, coming into year 5 here soon, and it's been a journey, but I left my full-time job in August of 2022. So I did for, about 2 years, did a full-time corporate VP job on top of growing our beef business and being the only person on our team, filling orders, marketing, communicating with customers. And then in 2022, I left to go full-time because I knew that if I didn't commit to it fully, it could never reach its full potential. So we had to take that risk and jump off the edge and go for it.
Okay, well, you answered my first question, which was, which came first, the meat business or you leaving your job to build the meat business? And I think that the reason I want to ask that, and again, I know you just told us the answer, but I want to highlight that because for many of us, that's exactly how it is. You have a full-time job. You start something as, for lack of a better word, a hobby that continues to slowly grow and you scale it. And then at that point, you're left with 2 full-time jobs and you already didn't have enough hours in the day as it was. Kind of walk us back to that period in how did you know that that side of the business was large enough for you to leave, or maybe even just more about how you balanced, again, nobody really likes that word, but again, it is a balance of how you built the meat business, but then also stayed dedicated to that 9 to 5. Go into that.
Yeah. So we knew, with my base pay and benefits and bonuses and company car, I had a wonder, like the credit union I worked at took such great care of their employees. And I really appreciate my time there and what I've learned and what they gave to us. But I knew that, like I said, if I was going to do the beef business, I had to commit to it. And at some point, there was going to be a jumping off point. And so we really started building a plan of where we felt we would be comfortable with that. And we knew that we were going to have to make some cuts personally for the things, the way we lived our life. We were, we're not big spenders or crazy. We're ranchers. We don't travel all the time. That's not an option. But we knew that we were going to have to make some choices and some tough choices to make that jump for me to go from a high paying corporate job with great benefits to, I always say I work a lot more for a lot less now, still to this day. And so we really started building a plan, and we didn't really have a set amount of gross income or net profit that we were looking for. But we really wanted to feel like we had a firm foundation on our wholesale business and on our direct to consumer business. And, we've been fortunate. And I think it all comes back to the quality of your product, regardless of what you're selling. And we believe so strongly in the product that we output. We know that it's great beef. We know it's quality beef. We know it's going to be consistent. And so really what I saw my job is to introduce as many people as possible to our product, because once we do that, people will know the quality and they will come back. And so that first couple of years, it also happened to be right when COVID was starting to happen, which turned out to be a great time because everyone was at home. Everyone couldn't go to, stores frequently as they wanted. So our availability of beef for delivered at your doorstep, shipped nationwide was really a great option. And it just happened to coincide with COVID. But we really worked towards, and we've always been savers. So every month we have a dedicated amount. Still in the job today where I'm making a lot less, we save a certain amount every month and we invest it and we save it for the future, because you just never know what's coming down the road. And so, we felt good where we were at with our savings. We felt good with, what volume we were doing in the wholesale business and the direct to consumer business. And so it was tough just because I had been at my career for 15 years. I had built the entire marketing department from scratch. I was the first marketing person there. We were growing as a credit union, but there was something inside of me that just felt like I will always regret if I don't take the leap and go see what we can do with this and build. It's our family's last name on every product that we sell. And that's pretty special to be a part of, and to know the customers that we talk directly with when we do pickups or when we, they call the office. And so I just couldn't, I had a great position and a great benefits and all of that, but there was something missing in me still that felt like I had more to offer, to share the word of what, my father-in-law and my brother-in-law and my husband have really worked so hard over generations to build in the quality of cattle that we raise. And, marketing for me is the easy part. It's where I'm more comfortable. It's where I feel I really shine. It's the operations and the business side of things that I've really had to dig my feet in and learn, but I didn't want to, with my skill set in marketing and knowing the quality of product that we had, there's something in my heart that wouldn't let me just say, oh, I don't think it'll work, or I'm not willing to take that risk. So we just said, this is going to be the date. I gave the credit union lots of notice, and because I appreciated my time there, I wanted to, do the right thing by them. But we just kind of set a hard date and said, we're going to make this work, and we're going to go forward and work as hard as we can to grow it so that it is sustainable. And now we have 5 team members that work on our team that we're responsible for supporting them. And so it really has been a process and a steep learning curve, but something that I really enjoy getting to do every day.
Well, I was going to ask, as VP of Marketing and Development, you did kind of have a cheat code when it comes to marketing to customers of a credit union, which are general everyday consumers, and how you market beef to what are general everyday consumers. So what did you really get to take from the credit union on the marketing side and bring it over to the beef business?
Yeah, I think there was definitely some tools and tricks that I brought with me, or experiences I had from the credit union, as far as processes and services and tools like SEO or Google Ads. I would say the thing that has been more of a challenge for us to learn on the beef side of the business is everyone has a checking account. Well, most everyone has a checking account or a debit card or manages their money through some type of institution. Not everyone buys their beef local. That pool is much smaller. Not everyone, can afford a locally grown steak or has that priority, which is totally fine. Whatever works for every family is what we say. We're here for those people that have the similar values to us and are looking to buy our product. But I would say the biggest thing that I brought was really the knowledge of how to get the word out about our product and reach those people in the funnel that are ready to buy our product. Not so much top of the funnel, but middle of the funnel, or someone that's ready to buy immediately, that's looking for the product that we have to offer. And so a lot of the tools that we use at the credit union, we use it in our beef business today. And I even went so far as to, when I left the credit union, I had a marketing manager that worked for me there, and I had hired her. She was a branch manager, but she really naturally leaned towards marketing and understood storytelling and connecting with people. So when I left the credit union, I set a personal goal for within 1 year of leaving the credit union to hire her. And I did. I hired her within 9 months of leaving because I knew how her and I work together. I'm a bigger vision person and more high level, and she's an integrator. She gets stuff done. You give her, here's the goal, here's what we want to achieve, and she gets that done. So I also brought a team member that worked with me at the credit union. Actually, we just recently hired another person. To me, in building a business, the people you have on board are your most important asset. So I actually have a list of people that I want to hire in the future for our business. And I wait for that opportunity when it makes sense. So we just hired an additional part-time person that I knew from my credit union life that works remotely for us because I knew her work ethic. I knew what she was capable of. And so that's just something, kind of a silly thing, that I write these notes down of people I want to have on the team in the future. But I strongly believe that who you have on the team is the most important asset you can have. So a lot of the technical skills that I learned at the credit union, and I think one thing, we're not there yet because we're smaller, but understanding a corporate structure and how to really run things efficiently. I think the bigger you get, the harder it becomes to not have red tape and processes and not get things done as quickly. And having that knowledge, I think I can understand as we grow how to better implement things so that we don't run into those situations and we can make decisions more quickly for our customers and for our team. And so definitely there's so much knowledge that I learned there that I'm taking into our business, and some that I know I don't want to incorporate into our business just because we're two different types of entities. But definitely so many learnings in my 15 years there of what I want to be as a leader, what I want to offer as a company. I tell our team every day, we're still a startup. We have to hustle and move like a startup. We can't be complacent, even though we're growing, even though we're doing well. There's more people coming into the market. We have to stand out from the crowd. What are we doing beyond just having a great product? What else are we doing to serve our customers well so that they want to come back and choose us again and again?
I think that I knew this was going to be a great conversation, but I absolutely love this because, again, we talked at the beginning of the show about how so many people have this dream of being able to leave their, salary or career, whatever that looks like for them, and be able to be involved in their operation. In order to do that, usually, like you guys did, you have to vertically integrate into where there is some other kind of income source. But I think that what you said about really leaning into when you're in that phase now, start paying attention, taking notes of like, hey, this has been vital to us at the credit union. This is something that we can easily implement in the beef business. Oh, this is actually, I feel like this has kind of crippled the business. So I don't want to take this with me. And like, how can you continue to innovate and edit and refine those types of elements and aspects so that when you do get to make those moves, you are really treating it like that business that it needs to be in order to be successful.
Right. There's a lot of things that I would love to do today that I think that's one of the biggest challenges for me is that I've had to learn is, and this is one thing I really appreciate my husband in the businesses that him and Logan have built in understanding, like, especially when you're new and especially when you're small, you have to prioritize the things that are going to make the biggest impact for you sooner. In a corporate structure, there's so much money. There's so many things going on. There's so many resources. So it's not as dire to focus and dial in on the most important things. Well, when you don't have a budget and you don't have any money and you only have a few people, it's key to prioritizing those things that must be done first. And that's honestly an area of opportunity that I'm working on as a leader. And as our whole team is, how do we make sure we're not getting lost in the noise? Because there's a ton of opportunity and there's a ton of stuff that we could be doing, but isn't moving the needle where we need it to go for right now. Those exciting and bigger things are coming down the road, but we have to take care of home base first and that strong foundation so that we can continue to grow and do those more exciting things. And it's hard. It's, when I went into entrepreneurship and owning our own business, what I thought it was going to be and what it actually is are very different. And even watching my husband and my brother-in-law and father-in-law, they've all been self-employed. They all ranch. I obviously had a front seat view to what was happening, but me being responsible for a team and for families and their income is a very different experience than me just cheering my husband on and not being involved in as many of those decisions, as on his side of the business. And so it's really been a learning curve, and something that I'm still working on today is really prioritizing those right things, especially because we have wholesale business and a direct to consumer. They're so different, like not even close to, they just operate and function so differently. It's really like having two separate businesses. And so how are we prioritizing the right things at the right time so that we can move forward and continue to grow? And right now, like wholesale is hard right now. This is, top of the market. We're, buying the cattle from our ranch. The market is high. And so we're really having to sharpen our pencil and say, how can we maximize every single part of this carcass to make it through this tough time and when prices are high, so that we can be better off in the future. So it's really sharpening our pencil every single day.
Okay, I'm so glad you brought that up because that's something I specifically wanted to talk about with you as well. As you mentioned, you have two separate sides of the beef business. You guys sell direct to consumer, and then you also wholesale to restaurants, a couple of grocery stores. Mm-hmm. That's kind of the bulk of that, correct?
Yes. Yep. So we sell to grocery stores, a lot of restaurants in the Treasure Valley, and then we also do some distribution in Seattle and Portland through a distributor.
So how exactly have you scaled those two necessary but yet very different sides of your business? Did one come first and then the other kind of naturally fit? Also, how do you manage to really respect all of those supply chains? Because like I know you're in the Boise Co-op, for instance. So you can sell in the Boise Co-op, but then you can also be selling direct to a consumer who would be a member of the Boise Co-op. So how do you, you have to have respect for those two very different yet vital relationships. Tell us all about the two sides of those businesses, how you guys make them work, because they're kind of yings and yangs.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say it's easier now as we've grown, but it was harder. So when we just started direct to consumer. And, one of the biggest challenges I think a lot of direct to consumer places have is everyone wants the ribeyes. No one wants the ground beef, but 40% of your carcass is going to be ground beef. So you have to find a way to turn over all of your carcass in 30 days, in 60 days, whatever you're looking at. And so you have to be resourceful. And I think that's one thing that is a challenge for smaller producers is how are we going to sell the whole carcass so that we aren't always sold out of steaks, always have ground beef and roasting. And so for us, we knew what our long-term goals are. We know where we want to grow. One built-in benefit that we have is my father-in-law, brother-in-law, and my husband, the business size that they have on the commercial size, we knew we had capacity to scale and grow. The cattle are there. We're not trying to sell to buy the cattle to continue to grow. So that's a built-in luxury that we have had that some might not have. And so I think we're about 6 months into direct to consumer. And, this was really a leap of faith going into wholesale because you can't not have product available for your wholesale customers. When you start selling it to them, you have to have it every week. So for example, the Boise Co-op, we deliver it to them twice a week. To our restaurants, we deliver once or twice a week. So once they start taking a product, you can't not have it and not have a butcher date and not be ready to go. So you really have to jump in wholehearted and go for it. So we were doing, I think, a harvest every 2 weeks when we started on wholesale. And it was hard. We had a lot of products sitting around that we didn't have homes for. We were freezing products. Just this whole learning process of the wholesale side of things has been so fascinating to me, and learning so much about the backside of what happens in beef and how it gets to dinner tables and how it gets to grocery stores and how it gets to restaurants has just been so fascinating to me, and also a huge headache. I always joke that I thought I was getting in the beef business, but I was actually getting in the logistics business because, especially as a small producer, when you have 2 or 3 pallets of product on an 18 pallet semi, you're paying for that whole semi, whether you have 3 pallets or 18 pallets. And so again, we've really pushed to grow our wholesale because you're going to realize those economies of scale faster when you can fill a whole truck and you're paying 5 cents a pound versus 50 cents a pound to get that product where it needs to go. And so, we were fortunate that people knew our quality and knew our name. We're still working on that, but especially on the wholesale side, there's so many names that are so well known in the Northwest that have huge hold of share across the market that we've been, not pushing up against, but really for most places have a couple brands they have in their case. And if they're going to put your name in the case, they're going to take someone else out. And so for us, I think really the differentiation has been our all natural program with no antibiotics and no hormones. So some programs that are larger don't do that or don't have that. And so for us, it was a perfect alignment, like with the Boise Co-op. And so we really found some key core accounts that believed in us from the beginning, have worked with us, have been so patient. We have had experiences where we haven't had a product or we ran into an issue. They've been flexible. We've communicated through it. And, I always believe that you're going to have problems. So you have to have good partners that are willing to work through them with you. And that's really what we focus on. We aren't going to be everything for everyone. We're going to be a little more than the market because we have a natural product. We want people that believe in our story, that know who we are, why we raise what we raise. And so we want people that when, stuff does go wrong, we can work through it together. We don't want partners that it's just a fight and name calling. Like, we want to find a solution. There are going to be problems that come up. But as we've grown the wholesale, one thing that's really offered for us, which has been amazing, is flexibility to pull that product into our direct-to-consumer website. So I would say probably it varies with time of year, but probably 20 to 25% of our product we're pulling from wholesale into our direct-to-consumer website. So we have flexibility. If we're sold out of ribeyes, we can pull those from our wholesale program and cut them to fill that gap. Whereas if we were only reliant upon whole carcasses, we wouldn't have that product to offer and we would just be sold out until we had a whole animal carcass harvested. So that's really been one of the biggest things in finding that balance. Now our problem as we've grown is they're both growing and they both want the product. So how do we divvy that up so that we're still serving our customers on both sides well? But it's a good problem to have. We know that people are loving the product and wanting more of it. So being a small business owner and entrepreneur is really a perpetual problem-solving adventure. You solve one and you get a new one.
It absolutely is. And what you say too about now our problem is we have great demand on the direct-to-consumer side and we have great demand on the wholesale side. And somebody would say, well, just, slaughter more animals. Well, it doesn't necessarily work that way. There's only so many dates available because there's a lot more logistics when it comes to the processing and the harvesting of beef. As you continue to grow, there's always new challenges and problems. And I also am a firm believer in what got you here won't get you there too. You have to be very flexible in your decision making and continually innovating, because a lot of the decisions that, or ways you would have solved problems to get to the point are not necessarily going to be the same solutions that are going to get you into the future. And so just continuing to always be nimble in that way, I think is absolutely vital.
Right. And especially in the beef market, it is so not volatile, but it's always changing. We update our price sheets on the wholesale every single week because the cutout is changing every single week. And it's right now wild what's going on. And so you really have to be not only solving those problems for today, but looking ahead 6 months, 12 months ahead because of how long it takes to produce, a cow that's ready to be made into beef. It is something that you really have to be dialed in and looking ahead. And it's hard when you have a small team. And I didn't have experience in this when I started. And so it's been a steep learning curve. And we've learned by losing money. We've learned by making bad decisions. We've learned by having poor partnerships. One of the hardest things in Idaho is processing space. And I'm sure that's across many of the states. A lot of people, for our wholesale side, I think we've been at 4 processing places since we started 4 years ago. So, we're good at being nimble and flexible, but we feel like we finally landed in that place where we have a great partner. It's close to home. We're not spending so much trucking cattle across multiple states, getting all the product back. So, every decision we make, we're trying to bring our circle in closer so that that logistics cost is not as high and doing what we can to be as efficient as possible.
Oh, I love this. This has been an awesome conversation, and I want to make sure that we still have time for our rapid fire questions. So to kind of wrap up this portion of the interview, is there anything else that you would want to share, whether it is for somebody who is maybe looking to scale whatever business that they have, if it's somebody who is, again, kind of in the spot that you were a few years ago when it comes to wanting to leave that full-time job and really build something at home so that they can continue to vertically integrate and, not have everything in the same basket? What are some final parting thoughts for us?
Yeah, I would say that, and this is just based upon my experience and my personality, I have been known to be a worst case scenario thinker. I'm not a huge risk taker. My husband is the opposite. So it creates interesting dynamics in our marriage. But, I think one thing to keep in mind is that there's very few things in life that are for certain or forever. So work towards the goal you want. If you want to work on the ranch, if you want to launch your beef business, I always tell myself as a safety net, I have a good skill set. If this doesn't work out, I can go back and use that skill set to serve someone else. But I'm going to be really upset if I don't take the chance and I don't try. And really thinking of it more of a pivot. That's something I've really worked on a lot in our business is there's a lot of things that aren't going to work out or that I hope will work out or I got to know. You really have to learn to pivot and know that there's very few things that are fatal in a business or in life. You always have the opportunity to respond to it and come back in a different way, in a more positive way. So just keep that in mind. When we jumped into it, we said, this is going to work. We're going to make it work. And that's really the mindset you have to have. But know that there's very few things that you can't pivot and find a different way of doing something, or you have to go back to work in town or whatever that may be. And then I would also say just setting a goal for the future, writing it out, seeing it every day. On my mirror in my bathroom, I have a couple bullet points of things that I want to achieve for our team and for myself as we grow this business. When you see it every single day, it helps you achieve those goals better and more quickly. And so I would write it down and put dates to it. And then at some point, you just have to make the jump and trust in yourself. It's scary, it's challenging, but know that there's no other person that you can put your money on better than yourself. You know yourself better than anyone else, and you might as well bet on yourself instead of someone else.
Oh, amen to that. I am a firm believer in that, because you better go all in on yourself. If you're not going to, then you need to take some time to reflect on why that is and how you can change that. Okay, let's get to the rapid fire round. Typically, we ask people the same set of questions. I'm going to ask you those today, but I'm throwing in one that's a little bit different. And it's not different. It's just a question that not everybody else gets, but it perfectly fits this conversation. So first things first, Elizabeth, favorite cut of beef?
My husband is embarrassed by this, but I would say filet or Terrace Major are my two favorites. He's like, I'm embarrassed that you're saying that filet is your favorite cut as a rancher, but he can have his ribeyes. I will have my filet. Terrace Major is my newest favorite cut because the versatility of it. I call it the mini tenderloin. It's just an awesome cut, tender, and just has so much flavor.
I also lose my rancher street cred when I admit that I don't like prime rib. I know that's terrible. Like, how can you be a rancher and not like prime rib? Anytime we go out for a Friday or Saturday night dinner, not that that happens very often, but Justin is always going to order the prime rib. He doesn't even need to be at the table. I will just be able to order it for him. I know exactly what he's going to get. I don't like it. So I firmly understand your desire for a filet. I'm right there with you. Okay, what do you hope that people remember most about you?
Oh, I would say that I was approachable and kind and that I made people feel valued and heard.
I like that. What is a non-negotiable in life?
This is so boring, but sleep. I don't function well as a person if I don't get enough sleep. I've always needed a lot, and just ask my family, if I get a full 8 hours of sleep, my job is better, my family is better. So it's super boring, like an old lady, but that's what it is.
I'm the same way. I don't function well without sleep. And I'm not somebody who, I like to wake up early in the morning. And if you wake me up, I'm not cranky about it. I'm not one of those people. But my body physically needs sleep. Otherwise, after a couple of days of no sleep, I get kind of ill. So no, I can relate to that. I'm sure others can as well. If you were a professional athlete, what would your walk-up song be?
I had to think about this one, and my kids are disappointed in my choice because they love music and all the fun stuff. But I would say Sweet Caroline by Neil Diamond. And that is in honor of my dad. He passed away in 2016 from a long battle with cancer. And he loved Neil Diamond. And I remember my mom was a teacher. We got our first CD player when I was like third or fourth grade, maybe. She got it with her book order points that she earned. And the first CD we owned was Neil Diamond. And so that's a song that gets everyone pumped up, whether you're at a basketball game, at the bar, at a football game. Everyone knows that song. So in memory of my dad, that would be my walkout song.
Bum, bum, bum. Okay, I couldn't help myself. What is the smartest thing anyone ever told you?
With being so ingrained with my husband and our business, obviously, him and I talk all the time about our business. And one time he said to me, I write down a lot of the things he says just because they're so like, someday I'm going to write a coffee book table of all these quotes. But one time he said to me, some people accept one no, and some people go through 100 no's to get to their yes. And I think it encapsulates small business ownership and entrepreneurship. If you're someone that takes the first no and gives up, you won't make it. You have to keep going and pushing, no matter how many times it takes until you get to that item or that success you're trying to achieve.
Amen to that. So I encourage anybody who is listening to take that advice. Don't just stop with one no. Keep going until you get your yes. Okay, last question for you. Favorite things. Do you have a favorite book, podcast, a life hack, service, something that has changed your life that you just think more people need to know about? It can be anything.
I'm not great at life hacks. I follow lots of life hacks that people have online, and then I share them with others, like your French bread hack. I use that all the time now. But favorite podcast is probably the Mel Robbins podcast. I listen to hers a lot. And then I just started listening to The Game by Alex Hormozi, and that is more tactical for business. And I've really enjoyed that because he talks to business owners about their problems and then he helps them solve, what he would do in that scenario. So those are my top two podcasts, and I listen to a lot because I drive all the time, but those are the two that I get the most out of being a business owner and just growing as a person.
Mel Robbins and Alex Hormozi are absolutely they are totally it. They are super smart, super positive, no fluff, which I absolutely love. And yeah, the French bread hack, in case you're wondering what that is. I have found, when you get garlic bread and you cook the garlic bread and then you take it out and it's hot and you go to slice it, and because it's hard, that gets crumbs everywhere. So what I do is before I put it in the oven, I take it out of that little protective tinfoil sleeve that you cook it in, and I slice it then. And it is a lot easier to slice. You're not going to burn your hand off. And there's 10 to 1 for crumbs. I mean, there are no crumbs in comparison to when you're slicing your hot garlic bread and it's all breaking apart and then you smash it. So no, the move is absolutely slice your garlic bread before you cook it in the oven, and you can easily put it back in the sleeve. You just kind of have to put the sack vertical and then throw the pieces in there, and it works out great.
Yep. And when you're branding and cooking 5 or 6 loaves, you cook them, you grab the bag, take them to the branding, you can just dump them out into a bowl. So it's definitely one that I frequently use. So thank you for sharing.
You're welcome. Thank you guys so much for hanging with us today. Elizabeth, this was fabulous. Where can people find you and where can people buy beef?
Sure. So on social media, we're just at Thomas Cattle Company on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. And then our website is thomascattlecompany.com.
Okay, well, easy enough. And then if somebody's at a restaurant in the Northwest, where can they order some of your beef off the menu?
Oh, gosh. So we sell through a couple distributors up in Seattle, Portland, in the Treasure Valley market. You can go to Red Feather, Tim's Burgers, Neighbor Tim's Barbecue, and we also have them listed on our website. So because you put me on the spot and I didn't have my list pulled up, I'm going to defer people there. But there's about 20 or 25 places that we sell our beef, and some of them put them on the menu, some don't. That's totally up to each restaurant. But if you're looking for a place to support local beef, you can reach out to us on social media as well. And we're happy to point you in that direction, because those businesses that are choosing local beef are supporting local and want to help our egg economy grow, which is truly why we love doing what we do and why we're doing what we do today.
No, it is. Well, thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. We will be back here next week with a brand new episode of Leaders of the West. Elizabeth, I hope you have a killer day. Go crush whatever is on your list. And you guys, we'll see you back here next week. If you loved this episode, do us a favor and share it with someone else who might find just as much value in it as you did. We're on a mission to continue to grow and strengthen the future of agriculture and Western industries, and you spreading the word helps us make more of a positive impact. It also makes a big difference when you take a minute to go rate and review the show. We can't thank you enough for listening, for sharing, and for loving Ag and Western as much as we do. We'll see you back here for our next episode.